welcome to Design Everest. My name is Nagin, and today in our program we have Christine Lampert from Lampert Diaz Architecture. Welcome to the program, Christine. I love our pre-chats, and it's been really interesting. So I'm dying for the audience as well to get to know you and know a little bit about your background and your ideas, which are quite interesting. So you've been in the industry for a long, long time. You've been working in different fields and have a lot of experiences. My first dying question is, what do you have any experience or anything you want to share with us and our audience, which has some relevance to today and we can learn from it maybe?
I think that the practice of architecture is constantly re-looking at projects, rethinking, trying to think out of the box. And that's what we're doing now. We're having to look at things that we're traditionally familiar with and change the whole course and think out of the box and try to redo things and still have relevant, beautiful architecture that functions. So I can think of probably many of my projects were like that, where you go into the project at the beginning thinking that you're going in one direction and then realizing that in order to make it work for you and your client, you needed to change direction totally. And I think that's where we're at right now with the field of architecture. What are we going to do next, and how are we going to focus on what works for our clients, but really jump into what's happening to us right now? So
yeah, I think there's a lot of uncertainties around what's next, what would the vision be, how much the industry is going to change. So let's get into a little bit more specific questions around especially residentials, that you have a lot of experience in it. How do you think the residential theme is going to change because of COVID?
Well, I think it's going to have to change, not as much as commercial or retail, but we can start with the heating and cooling systems. Right now, especially in the United States, most houses are heated with forced air heating, where the ducts go into each individual room. And I think we may want to change that, maybe copy the style that's often used in Europe and in Asia with what they call mini splits, where each room has its own individual heating and cooling system so that it doesn't recirculate throughout the house. We think we're going to see more of that, so that, a family can live together, but they really don't want to have to share their air as much as we do now. And then the other area is using antibacterial materials for countertops and for tub surfaces and for flooring. The new quartz materials, which are on the market under several different names, are antibacterial. So we're going to see less use of marble and actual stone granite in the future to help with that. Other than that, I think, living in a household with your family, hopefully that's your group. Everybody hopefully doesn't expose themselves too much to the outside. So
But
we're
it's
going to see more
interesting
changes in multifamily. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, because California has been having this shift, or at least trying to do the shift right before the COVID, to face the housing crisis by building more multi-family residentials. How would
Right.
that work?
Right. Well, I think multifamily, we're going to see same thing, individualized heating and cooling. You're not going to have it in a building where it circulates throughout the whole building. And I think also we need more outdoor space. That's become obvious with COVID, that people need to be able to have outdoor space for fresh air. So a lot of times apartment complexes share their outdoor space. I think we're going to need more individual private spaces. The pools and the public gathering spaces are going to be under new rules. They may have to limit and restrict how often and who uses them, and you may have to make an appointment to do that. The other thing that California has been doing, besides building multifamily apartments, is they have a new law that allows each individual person in a single family house to build an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU. So we're seeing in residential single-family neighborhoods, people are building small individual units, either behind their houses or over their garages, sometimes even in their garages. That is the same rules as we have for an individual house. These little ADUs are 500 square feet to 1,000 square feet. They're allowed to be 1,200 square feet. So I think we're going to see that's going to be similar to residential. And what's happening with that, it allows the individuals in their houses to rent out a unit in their neighborhood. So we're going to see more dense neighborhoods, but it's going to help with the housing crisis.
You mentioned about the commercial that's going to change even more than residential. I guess the usual things that we are seeing, for example, the kind of spaces that they can only accommodate certain number of customers in, and they need to make sure the ventilation system works well and that sort of stuff. Can you walk us through these changes you think they have to face?
Well, for retail and restaurants, we're going to see, I think, a lot of changes, because we're finding right now, and it's summertime here, that restaurants are all serving their food outside, and the cities have even given away half of the downtown street. They've cordoned it off with railings and fences, and they're serving food. It's actually very festive and nice to see people eating in the streets and outside, and we're going to see more of that. I think
and
that
you have the best weather in the world to accommodate that.
We can do it all year round. It's pretty amazing, and a lot of places you can. I mean, it's difficult in the colder climates, but I think we're going to find out that we can if they have heaters and they have covered areas where people can sit away and without the rain hitting them. That I think we're going to see much more outdoor eating in the future. And obviously restaurants are going to have to, when they do have individual people inside, they're going to have to distance them so that you can no longer have these little crowded bistros where people are sitting 3 feet apart from each other. That's got to change, and it's going to hurt. We're going to see a lot of restaurants disappear. We already have. Retail, I think the stores are starting to open again. Same thing. I think it would be important to limit the number of people that they have inside. They need to redo and retool their heating and cooling systems so that air is not recirculating between all of the shops. The area that's very significant in addition to all that are commercial buildings and high-rise buildings. We're going to see workforces decrease tremendously. I have a friend who works for a 1,000-person actuary firm. They're all over the world, and they've already announced that only 10% will be coming back to the office. Everybody else will be working at home. So suddenly we're going to have a lot of commercial retail space empty. And what are we going to do? How are we going to repurpose that? What are we going to do with these high-rise buildings with half of their office space empty?
Yeah, it's a big question because, for example, I live in London and they just opened up parts of the city. So you can go, for example, there's like a members club and things like that are open. And you go in there, and the buildings here are not that tall. Usually you have like 4 stories and that's it. And even in those, I don't dare to get into the lift or elevator. How would that work?
They're going to have to monitor the elevators. I was once in a Marriott hotel in New York City where you actually had to reserve your elevator to get to your floor. And I think we're going to have to find that system, put that back in place. It wasn't very successful 10 years ago. It was very irritating that you couldn't just get into any of the 8 elevators that were there. But we're going to have reservations on our elevators, and maybe one person at a time going up, maybe 2 or 3 in the larger elevators. I worked in New York City years ago, and we would cram 15 people in an elevator to get up to the 23rd floor. Those days are over. We're going to have hand washing stations everywhere. We're going to have, antibacterial surfaces installed, hand washing stations. They're going to take your temperature at the front door. There's going to be a lot of empty space. I think that it's an interesting term. There's an architecture firm that's worldwide. They're called Gensler. And I've spent a lot of time working with them. They use the term hackable spaces. They've been doing this for several years. They're taking high-rise buildings that are semi-empty, which has already been happening, and repurposing them into small groups of apartments, gymnasiums, and any other type of use than office. And it's been, and for sustainability purposes, it's been very good. They can reuse the heat from one to heat another space. So I think we're going to have a lot of these hackable buildings, excuse me, where we're going to insert other uses into office buildings, and maybe that'll even help our living situation in overpopulation. So we're going to see changes there. And then, of course, the bottom line is the heating, cooling, air conditioning systems will have to all be redone so that we're not blowing air throughout the entire spaces. And there are some new technologies in heating and cooling where the air is not blown into the space, but it's simply dropped into the space. So it's not creating a lot of movement, and it just moves down, which is much safer for COVID and bacteria.
Interesting. There are a lot of interesting thoughts in there. Kirsten, anything else you want to add? Any other changes you think it would happen?
Well, I mean, the other one is theme parks. What's going to happen to all of our great theme parks throughout the world? I don't know how they're going to succeed. They depend on huge crowds. So once again, they're going to have reservations and keep everyone socially distanced. So it's going to affect a lot. And church, people go to church and they sit together in these pews. We're going to have to rethink that. So everything we do, we're going to have to look at and just take it out and try to think out of the box. And I think over the next few years, our architects and designers are going to come up with solutions that we haven't even thought of yet. So, time and experience will help us change how we do things. In 25 years, our children and grandchildren will be living in a different world, and they won't think anything of it. For us, it will be shocking and different, but we'll all have worked slowly toward it, so it won't be a huge change.
Yeah,
Anything
we
else?
are all adopting to the new normal now.
Yes, the new normal in 25 years will be different. I mean, hopefully this will make us all more cautious. I feel that in the past we haven't been cautious enough about disease and germs and how we spread it. So it's a new way of thinking. The germs aren't going to go away. The diseases may change, but we should be more cautious. I mean, since I was a little kid, my mom taught me when you get on an airplane, you wipe everything down. And I think that's the new normal. So yeah, we need to do that.
Yeah, we can't wait to get there. Thank you so much, Kirsten Lampert. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Megan. It's good to talk to you.